Hey guys, and welcome back to Reading This Week. So you guys have been doing awesome on your work with characters and seeing how they develop and change throughout a story. You've practiced seeing how those changes and their actions lead to a theme or a lesson that they can learn in the story and that the author really wants us as the reader to learn. So today we're going to continue that work. So today I want to teach you that readers take time to describe in depth how the events in a story add to the meaning. So readers do this in two ways. So first, they think about the event and they think to themselves, what details led to this event? And how did these details affect or shape the rest of the story? So that's the work we're going to do today. So during Interactive Read Aloud, you have been reading the story Save Me a Seat. We are almost done with that story, so I hope you've been enjoying it. It's one of my favorites. So I'm going to show you how we are going to do this work together. So I've got my reading journal handy, and you will probably need yours too because we're going to practice doing this together. So you can pause the video and go ahead and go get your reading journal if it's not already next to you. All right, so again, we are really looking at the details and analyzing them to answer these two questions today. And then tomorrow we're really going to see how these things that we've mapped out lead to the theme of the story. So again, we're using the story Save Me a Seat. So first I'm going to think about an event, and I'm going to ask myself, what details led up to this event? So I'm going to think of the event, and then I'm almost going to go backwards to think how these details led up to the big event that I'm talking about. And then after I figure out all those details, I'm going to think, how does this shape the rest of the story? So how does this event matter to the rest of the story? And I know that we haven't finished Save Me a Seat, but I think it will all come together tomorrow once you finish the story and we really figure out the theme. All right, so I'm going to turn to another clean page in my journal, and I'm going to write Save Me a Seat because that's the book I'm going to use. Now, when you go off to practice this independently, you'll be writing the title of your book. All right, so I'm going to think of an event that we've already read about so far. Now, this doesn't have to be a super big event, just one that we remember happening in the story. Okay, so I'm going to think about the event where Ravi is sent to Miss Frost's classroom with Joe. So remember, she was the teacher who gave Joe some extra help. So that's what I'm going to write. My event is Ravi was sent to Mrs. Frost's classroom with Joe. So remember, when he went to Mrs. Frost's classroom, that's when she put him on the computer to kind of listen to little stories in English. So we are going to think about some events that led up to this. So what happened in order for Ravi to get sent to Miss Frost's classroom? So I'm just going to kind of brainstorm, and I just like to make kind of a bulleted list and list some things, and then we're going to write our thinking down below, kind of do a little response in our journal. So first I'm thinking, well, the first thing that happened was that Ravi moved to America from India. So that's the first big event. He's brand new in this country. Okay, and then I'm going to think, remember when he got to school and he stood up when he wanted to speak? And all the classmates thought that was strange. He stood up when it was his turn to speak. Even the teacher kind of thought that was strange. She was like, we do not stand up when you're called on. Okay, then also the students and teachers had trouble understanding his accent. So even though he kept thinking about how he knew English, that he learned English as his first language, they still had trouble understanding him because of his accent, because he was from India. So I think that they assumed that he couldn't really speak English that well. And then remember when he thought he was really going to show off and do that awesome math problem, and it all kind of went wrong because he wasn't using the right strategies. So math problem went wrong. So even though he got the answer right, they were like, this is not how we do it here. And then the last thing I'm going to write, which event led up to this, is right before that Mrs. Beam, his teacher, thought he needed extra help. And that's why she asked Miss Frost to take him when she came to get Joe. Okay? So all of those are the event or the details from the story that led up to the events. All right, so now I kind of want to put all that thinking together and answer that other question that I had, which was, how does this shape the rest of the story? So even though we haven't finished it, we can kind of infer based on these details, use those inferencing skills, how this is important to the rest of the story. So I'm going to start off by saying this event is important to the rest of the story because it shows how people didn't understand Ravi. They kind of assumed or judged him based on where he came from and kind of the things he was used to in India and how they're just not what other kids might see as being normal here in America. So they're judging him based on his actions, like standing up to speak or doing that math problem incorrectly without really knowing him. So they really are just assuming that he needs that extra help, which I could add to my my response down here, because he's new to America. So that's why they're just assuming these things about him. So I think that this is going to really go with the rest of the story because it's going to show us that maybe we shouldn't assume people are a certain way without knowing them. All right, so I want us to try this together with another event that you read about today in Save Me a Seat. And that is the event where Ravi and Joe both stay home from school. So they're both staying home from school on the same day. So we want to think about the events that led up to them staying home from school, okay? So if I think about them staying home from school, well, I know Ravi was staying home from school because remember that well, really they both didn't know they were staying home from school, but they stayed home from school because, well, Ravi was hit by a ball thrown by Dylan So remember in PE, Dylan kind of purposely hit Ravi, and then Ravi thought that he did it on accident when really he didn't. And then remember that Joe was being teased by Dylan daily. And also remember Joe's mom kept coming to his rescue. And he didn't really like that too much. Right, so we could keep going with some of the events because I think there are a lot of events that lead up to this. So let's think maybe how some of these details leading up to this event shape the rest of the story. So if Ravi and Joe are both staying home from school, then maybe we could say something about how they are both being, or I might say both Ravi and Joe are misunderstood. And are being treated unfairly. So this is similar to what we wrote for our last event, that Ravi was kind of misunderstood and judged based on some of his actions without getting to know him. And it seems here that, you know, they're both staying home from school because of some things that happened to them that were not so kind, really both caused by Dylan. So both Ravi and Joe are misunderstood and are being treated unfairly. So that's how it kind of goes with the rest of the story. So today, as you go off to read your own independent book, I want you to be thinking about these things and do this work with your book. So I want you to think about an event in your book. It doesn't have to be a big event. It could be a smaller event, even if you're not done with your book. And I want you to ask yourselves, what details led up to that event? So what little things happened that led up to this event that you're thinking of? And then how does this shape the rest of the story? So how did this event, how is it important to the rest of the story? So remember, you don't have to be finished with your book in order to do this work. But make sure that you're reading at least 30 minutes a day and practicing the skills that we're learning.